Okay, we're going to pick back up with the fractions from section 2.3, and your directions here are to solve the equations. The first thing I'm going to do with this problem is I'm going to turn that whole number 3 into a fraction, and the way I turn it into a fraction is I put it over 1. My common denominator for this particular problem is 10. So in a previous problem, I showed you how we took that common denominator and we multiplied it through both sides of the equation and went through this long explanation of it. Let's make this one a little more simple. What you're going to do is find your least common denominator, which is 10. You're going to put a 10 in every top. So I'm going to put a 10 here, I'm going to put a 10 here, I'm going to put a 10 here. Each of those three fractions will simplify. My first fraction is 10x divided by 5. I know that 5 goes into 10 two times. So when I reduce that down, that just leaves me with a 2x. My next fraction is 10 times x divided by 2. Well, 2 goes into 10 5 times. So 5 times x would be what's left. In the last one, 3 times 10, nothing cancels out, so that just leaves you with 30. My resulting equation is 2x equals 5x plus 30, and there are no fractions, and that was the purpose of working it in this method. At this point, I want to get the x's together, and even though the 5x is bigger, it is going to be easier for you if you choose to move the 5x. So to move the 5x, I'm going to make it negative, and I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. 2x minus 5x would give me a negative 3x. So negative 3x equals 30. To get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3, and x would equal a negative 10. I moved the 5x over because if you had chosen to move the 2x over, you would have cleared a side and you would have gotten a 0, and sometimes those are harder to do. But if you would like to see it worked with the 2x being moved, just email me or inbox me and I'll be glad to show you. My next problem is x over 2 plus 13 equals negative 22. Now there's more than one way to work this one, so if you have another way you'd rather work it, that is just fine. I'm going to try to stay consistent though, so I'm going to work it the same way as I worked the other ones from this section. I'm going to turn these whole numbers into fractions by putting them over 1. So my resulting equation is x over 2 plus 13 over 1 equals negative 22 over 1. My least common denominator here would just be a 2. My rule is I'm going to take that 2 and I'm going to put it in every top. When I reduce it down, my first fraction is 2x divided by 2. So a 2 in the top and the 2 in the bottom cancel, and that just leaves me with an x. My second fraction has a 1 in the bottom. Nothing crosses out, but I do have 2 times 13, and that would be 26 in the top. My last fraction has a 1 in the bottom, so nothing crosses out, but I have a negative 22 times 2, which would give me a negative 44. I don't have fractions anymore, so that's great. My resulting equation is x plus 26 equals negative 44. To get x by itself, I have to move the 26, so I'm going to subtract 26 from both sides. But on the right side, I see that I have the same sign, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. So when I added these up, I would get a 10 and carry the 1, and 4 plus 2 plus 1 would give me 7. Add and keep the sign, so my answer for this one would be a negative 70. Still continuing our study of fractions, my next problem is x divided by 2 minus 1/10 equals x divided by 5 plus 1/2. To keep my original nice and clean, I'm just going to rewrite the problem, which you do not have to do. My denominators here are 2 and 10 and 5. That means my common denominator for this one would actually be a 10. So I'm going to take that common denominator of 10 and I'm going to multiply it through by every top. So put a 10 in the first one, put a 10 in the second one, put a 10 in the third one, put a 10 in the last one. Each of those 4 fractions will simplify. So my first fraction is 10 times x divided by 2. So 2 goes into 10 5 times, and that leaves me with a 5x. My second fraction is 10 times 1 over 10. Well, I know that 10 divided by 10 leaves me with a 1. It has a negative in front of it, so that's going to be a negative 1. Be careful not to cross them out totally. 10 divided by 10 would leave you with a 1 placeholder, so you need to remember to keep that 1 in there. 2 goes into 10, I'm sorry, I misspoke. 5 goes into 10 2 times. So for my third term, I would have 2x. And my last term is 10 times 1 over 2. So 2 goes into 10 5 times, and that would leave me with a 5. My resulting equation is 5x minus 1 equals 2x plus 5, and I need to solve that out. This means I have to move an x. I'm going to choose to move the 2x over. To move it, I change its sign, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. 5x minus 2x is 3x. My resulting equation is 3x minus 1 equals 5. Next, I need to get rid of the 1. So to get rid of the 1, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And that gives me that 3x equals 6. That's 3 times x. So the opposite of times is to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and my final answer will be x equals 2.